Um,
All right. It's all yours.
just clicking the got it button. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Happy to see you all here Monday night. So tonight our topic of the night is core values. Okay. And I'm going to guide us through a conversation tonight, kind of in a typical Rachel fashion. There's going to be some exercises along the journey. So we're going to talk about understanding core values. We're going to talk about the role of core values in business success. We're going to talk about some tools that Young Entrepreneur Syndicate actually has available to you in the document library to help with values. We're going to talk about examples of big brands that have done amazing things with their values. I'm going to show you some examples of some brands that we've worked with to build their brand architecture, their brand DNA. And then from there, we're going to talk about how this impacts your profitability on your business and tips for implementation that you can use. So that is the roadmap of where we're going tonight. And I'm going to start you guys with a story. I want you to imagine this is like early 2000s. And this really happened. This wasn't like a once upon a time make believe. This really happened. I was working for a company, and there were 4 owners of this company, and one of them was really into values, thought that values were the future of companies, and really wanted to put his stake in the ground on values. So he developed a whole separate arm of the company, a whole division, if you will, for values-based thinking. He called it the Values Institute. He also wrote a book all about values and had seminars where he gave awards to big brands that were living by values-based work. And then he went ahead, I am not kidding you, then he went ahead and defrauded his employees, stopped paying their health insurance without telling them, took their 401k money, went months without paying them, and there are still pending lawsuits. So I'm telling you this because, walking the walk and talking the talk are 2 very different things. And it's sometimes the people that you wouldn't expect it. So I honestly want to believe that his heart was in the right place when he started this journey. But then for whatever reason, I never found out. I never talked to him about what happened. I had left the company by the time that had happened, and there was no sense in me going back. This was just what was reported. So I was like, and told to me firsthand through people who were still there. So I knew it happened, but I just never talked to him personally about it. I felt like he wasn't the kind of person that aligned with my values. And so I didn't want to, get any closer to that stink bomb. So with that in mind, we are all business leaders who are building values-based companies. We are in a community of value-based thinkers. And I know that that's important to all of us. And I want to just read to you guys the definition of core values. Okay, so core values are fundamental beliefs and principles. And I'll put this in the back end so you don't have to write it down. I'll put it in the chat even. Core values are fundamental beliefs and principles that guide an individual, organization, or company's behavior, decisions, and culture. They represent the fundamental and unwavering principles that underpin how people operate and interact with the world around them. So it really is important for all of us. I know that you guys believe this too, that your core values need to be really clean from the beginning. It's a great place to start. I know we talk about, your business plan and raising capital or getting your URL and all those things that are tactical, but taking the time and the space to sit down and really hammer out your values is going to set you up for a long-term business success. And that's kind of where this conversation is going to go in the long run. So I think I'm going to share with you guys, these are going to be no-brainers for you. You're all going to be nodding your head yes. If this was a quiz, I know you'd be all like, yes, yes. But here's 10 here's 10 reasons why core values are essential in business. And I think this is going to be helpful for anyone who's watching the recording later. So it's going to help you, be a guide for decision making, right? Imagine you're faced with a complex choice or an ethical dilemma, right? You'll have an easier time making that decision if you know your core values. Second one is company culture. So maybe you believe in a strong, positive culture that's going to attract and retain top talent that aligns with you, right? That's important. The third one, alignment of goals. So your company or your personal brand, you're on a mission and a purpose, right? So your values should align with your goal. Seems simple enough. Number 4, customer trust and loyalty. Businesses that uphold their core values earn trust and loyalty of their customers more than those that don't. Number 5, it will attract the right partnerships. Other like suppliers or vendors or investors who share your values are going to want to work with you more when you're clear on who you are and they can look at you and see themselves in you and be like, yeah, I can work with them. So number 6, resilience and adaptability. So imagine it's a time of change or crisis or COVID shutdown, right? And how are you going to handle this? Or how are you going to adapt to this, right? When you're facing challenges, your values are going to come into play too. Number 7, brand differentiation. We talk a lot about who are our competitors, right? And values is a way that you can differentiate from your competitors. And it's also a way that you can help align with your target audience. So, all right, number 8, ethical reputation. If you uphold, core values of being an ethical company, other people, whether it's like in the legal space or financial or customers, they're going to, know you for being an ethical person. Number 9, employee motivation and satisfaction. Employees who work for a company that aligns with their personal values tend to be more motivated and they're more satisfied and more loyal. So that's a good thing too. And number 10, it's really long-term success. So it's going to have more long-term success and sustainability of your business. So that is the 10th one. Okay, so now this is the moment that I am going to take a little pause here for you guys and remind you, if you don't know, in the back end of Y.E.S, in the document library section, there is a really cool worksheet, I guess is what I'm going to call it, that you should all be using. So I'm going to share my screen, maybe, if I can. And if I can't, then you guys can just go on your own to this URL in the document library. And there's a document back there that it's called the values worksheet. And the values worksheet is one of my favorite worksheets to give new clients because it's very simple. It's a checkbox exercise. And there's like 4 or 5 pages of boxes where you can check values that align with, you need like 2 sets, right? So imagine you want to align with like values that align with your company. And you can look at it different ways. You could say values that align with my company are going to be circled in yellow, and values that align with my customers are going to be in red. You can see if there's overlap there or disjointment. You could also say, hey, yellow boxes are going to be my values today, and the red boxes are going to be what I want my values to be 5 years from now. Aspirationally, this is where I want it to go. The nice thing about this worksheet is it also defines what all the values mean, and they're alphabetized, so they're easy to keep track of. And it's a really good tool as you're going through and building your brand DNA, which I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like soon. But this is a step-by-step tactical way to go about it, because I feel like sometimes people talk about values and it's just sort of like, oh yeah, pick a value. But this helps really put some guardrails around that for us. So I'm not going to share my screen, but you can go on the back end of Y.E.S and download that values worksheet. So I highly encourage you guys to do that. All right. Now, I want to ask you, what are some examples of companies that you believe have strong core values? Go ahead and put them in the chat, and I'll bring them up kind of as I'm going and make sure to address them. And while you guys are thinking about that, I'm gonna mention one that I think is kind of, there's a few that kind of come to mind for me, like Patagonia, Zappos, what else? Tom's, right? With their shoes and how they give one, right? I've heard mixed reviews, but some people think Costco or Starbucks, Tesla, Chick-fil-A, right? Like some brands are more known for building, a company and a culture around their core values. So I'm just curious what some of the ones you guys said. Oh yeah, Tesla came up, Chick-fil-A, love it. Home Depot, Hobby Lobby. Oh yeah, Hobby Lobby. That's a great one too. Forgot about that one. Yes. In-N-Out. Absolutely. Yes. I don't know Good Ranchers, but I love the name. It seems like it'd be strong value based for sure. Oh, doTERRA, that's another good one. You guys, these are the kind of companies that like make me think, oh yeah, I want to shop there. I believe in them. They're nice to their people. They're nice to their customers. And Saatchi is a big global advertising agency. And one of the founders wrote this book called Love Marks. And he talks about this term, love marks, and he defines it as loyalty beyond reason. And when you're a company with high values, you have loyal customers that are almost loyalty beyond reason, which means like, let's say, you're, let's say you're going to In-N-Out and you love In-N-Out because it's a strong value-based company and they get your order wrong. And you're like, oh, well, it's okay. Whereas like if you were going to another restaurant that got your order wrong, you might be like, damn it. I'm never going there again, right? You're a little more forgiving because you feel like you have a stronger relationship with that company. So let's see. The next thing I want to talk about here is, wait, before I do that, I want to show you guys, before I get too far along, I know I have a tendency to come to like sweep through things. But I would really like my ability to share my screen, if that is possible, because I don't want to lose anybody on this. And I want to break it down and I want to highlight one of our Y.E.S members who we helped develop their strategy and also their values. So I don't think Clayton is on tonight, but he has the brand Ready Player Win. Okay. And he wrote a book around it, and there's a website, and it's athletic training and coaching. So we worked with Clayton to go through this process. And I think it'd be helpful for all of you guys to see how you can put things together. So I'm just going to scroll this way. Okay. So I know this comes as the second slide, but it's the last thing that gets done. It's the about, it's who we are. This is often termed as like a boilerplate. It would go at like the bottom of a press release. It would go maybe in your Google SEO description. It'd go on the footer of your website, something that is really clean and clear what you are, what your business is all about. So there's that element. We also worked with them on the brand promise to your customers. So this is part of it too. Right? This is part of the values discussion. A vision is your soul and the future of your company, of where it's going. Then you've got your brand voice, and that's kind of how you communicate your values. Is it confident and powerful, or is your brand funny and charming, or is it lighthearted, right? So what kind of tone? And you can easily see how these building blocks are foundational to when you're going to handle talking about a catastrophe or you need to be more resilient, or you're talking to your employees, or you're going through training, or you're writing social media posts or copy. Like all of these are underlying fabric that are, foundational to how you talk about your brand essence. Okay. And then shared core values. So remember when I was talking to you guys a little while ago about that worksheet that you can download where they've got all these values. And so we selected with Clayton this grouping of values. And you really want to have like maybe 5 or 6. And we used 2 shades of blue, and we did brand values on the left and customer values on the right. And then we noticed in this exercise that there was only one that was shared when we went through the exercise, and that's perfectly okay. They can be complementary. They don't have to all match, but that's going to impact the tone. It's going to impact how we communicate with our customers and when representing the brand. So then what happens is once all these pieces are put together, you're also able to think about a color palette for your brand, because colors have certain meanings too. So you want to build on colors that represent your values and the tone and the energy and the essence of your company. Then you want to have logo that goes along with it. In this particular document that I'm showing you, we were early in the logo explorational process. So when we do a logo process, we do a mood board that kind of, sets it up. And then this actually ended up being the logo that we went with, but it was a slightly lighter shade of blue. It was more of a teal, but this ended up being the winner because this sort of looks like a knee, and that was sort of athletic, but it was also an arrow. So we liked the double meaning on that one. But we looked at a bunch of different options that all, could have worked and were solid. And then at the end, we always put together a brand DNA document. And I love brand DNAs because it has a summary of what we talked about before: the brand essence, the promise, the vision, the values, and the voice, all in a one-sheeter that you can easily print. This one sheet, put it in your like your notebook that you walk around with, right? And when you're faced with like a harebrained idea, or somebody brings something up to you, you're out and about and someone's like, oh, do you want to advertise in our local paper? And you're like, oh, that doesn't really, let me check it against my brand DNA. Does that align with who we are? Or you're like in the middle of the night, you have this crazy idea and you're like, wait a minute, is this a great idea or is it just totally off topic? So you can always go back against this and check it. It's a really useful tool. So I wanted to give you guys the visual of it as we continue down this path of talking about our journey with values. Okay. I'm going to take like a little pause. Any questions so far? Have I gone too fast? So doing okay? All right. Okay. So now let's talk about how a strong company is. I want to talk about basically how this affects your bottom line, and how do you put this into application, right? So, dun 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 dun. Hang on, wait for it. I have it. All right. So, integrating your core values into your business. Okay. So, step 1, define your core values. Well, I've given you the worksheet, so you can do that. So, okay, great. You can easily check that one off your list. You can figure out how you're going to communicate your values in your mission statement, your about statement, your essence, and all of this content can get used on your website. So there you go. It can also help with your mission statement. Cool. Where else are you going to communicate your core values? If you do employee orientation, it's going to go there. If you have an employee handbook, it'll go in there. You could put your values in every team meeting at the beginning of your team meeting, or at the bottom of every email newsletter that you send, right? You could do a series of social media posts on your core values. Let's see. Let's say one of the core values of Sunday Brunch is independence, right? So in our employee handbook, for instance, we say that like you don't have to work a 9 to 5 job or like an 8 to 5 or whatever the hours, traditional hours are. Like that's part of our culture. Like you get the work done when you get it done. It doesn't matter what time of day. It doesn't matter where you are when you get it done. You're encouraged to travel. We also have unlimited paid holiday days. Like you're not limited. And that's part of our culture because we believe in freedom and flexibility. So, you can bring those to life in your company however you need. All right. And I wanted to make sure you guys had that. All right. Then other things for your values-driven culture. So let's say philanthropy might be an important one to your company, even if you don't work in the philanthropic space. Maybe you want to have like one day a year that you guys are all going to go volunteer, like have a give back, corporate social responsibility day, right? CSR day. And you guys pick a favorite charity and you're all going to go do some hands-on labor, or you're all going to go to the thrift store and help sorting stuff, right? So there's other ways to show your values in other areas. So we can always brainstorm that too if you want. And it's really important that when you do set these values that you make sure your employees know it and that they believe in it. And if you think about organizations, by the way, just for a minute, but not corporate organizations, think about schools and think about even like church, right? Those are some of the most successful businesses of all time. They are real clear on their values and they like hammer those home, right? Like, so, you see values come across in every industry. They're shown in different ways, but like I went to modern day high school, right? Honor, glory, love. Like, how do I remember that? Like 30 years later, right? It's like they hammered it into us. Those were their values. So, values stick with you and they're really memorable. And how does this help your business in the long run? So honestly, it's really, you're going to have more loyal customers. They're going to be more forgiving of you. They're going to, refer you more often. So it's really a good tool to continue to be customer centric, right? And let's see, what else? I think there was one other thing about customers. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, because it's a relationship. Yeah. And you're consistently communicating with your customers. So they feel like, they can rely on you and, they are comfortable spending money with you, which is really what, ultimately that's, we all need to work and have good jobs. So anyways, that's really what I had to say about core values. And now I want to kind of toss it over to you guys. Is anything else, Jim, Rod, I forget, you want to add?
Sorry, it's a great topic. Thank you for bringing it up, talking through it as a reminder. We've talked about values tons of times in this group because it's so important. And every company that was listed on there, I see that Chris added Tiffany on there. You go and shop at places because of those values. You mentioned color, Tiffany. We all know that baby blue. You don't even have to see the name. You just know what that blue is. I mean, they even make firearms now that are Tiffany blue. And the women love them because they associate it with the values of Tiffany and Company. What's interesting, one of the points that you brought up was reputation, ethical reputation, or what the brand stands for. And now that this country is so transparent and divided on some things, you could really draw a line in the sand of what your values are and what your company means and pick up at least 70% of the population, or 30 if you're on the other side. So I think now more than ever, your values and what you stand for as a company are super important. So I know Rod's got his hand up, so and he's been waiting weeks to say something. We'll let him go.
Yeah, you let me talk last week, Jim. So I love the topic, Rachel, and I guess I'm gonna back up just a little bit, because at what point, and I think I know the answer to this, because I think we start our businesses with our values on our sleeve. Basically, we know what our values are before we start a business, so that should be part of it. But really doing that deep dive and identifying the values you want your business to represent. Do you recommend doing these exercises as part of or prior to writing a business plan? Or do you see them going hand in hand? Because I see this, at least with your approach, I'm seeing all the marketing intertwined with this, which is brilliant, by the way. But it's essential. But where do you see that happening in the drafting of the business document process?
I'm glad you asked, because it's hard to sit down and do your values the first time. And then you get so married to it, by the way. Like, imagine a brand has been in business for 20 or 30 years and they've never gone back and reassessed. Like, have our values changed? Has our company changed? Right? Like, so it's not just like a set it and forget it kind of an exercise. And I'd say every 3 to 5 years, you want to look at it again and be like, yep, this is perfect. This is still who I am. It's great. Or you can be like, oh, I've evolved. Okay, let's, make some adjustments. So that being said, there's certain technical details with the business plan, like picking the name. Like, if you have some of those things, then by all means, like, proceed with the paperwork. But before you start communicating with your customers, you need to know who you are and what you stand for. The first time I went to a business networking luncheon as a business owner, I hadn't really figured it all out yet. And I was still like trying to craft the press release, because that for me is like a really big proof moment, because you have to put down on pen to paper who you are and get ready to share it with the world. And I was like drafting it. And I had to stand up at this business luncheon and introduce myself. And it really just didn't need to be more than my name and my company. But I was like, yeah, okay. My name of my company, and what do I stand for? And I really freaked out because I wasn't ready to just like be loud and proud about it yet. And so I think the sooner you go through that exercise, the more comfortable and confident you're going to be. And I guess that's a really long-winded answer of saying I would do them at the same time. And then maybe if you're a new company, and maybe within the first 12 months, look at it again and be like, was that right? Or did it change? Because I'm sorry, I got one more example, but I had this client last year. She wanted to start a business. I think I may have mentioned her once before. She wanted to start a business doing yard signs. And she wanted to put signs in people's yards that said like happy birthday or happy anniversary or something. And after like 2 months of opening the business, she realized that she didn't want to do that anymore. And it was going to be the same company, but she was going to bring joy and happiness to people by delivering seasonal bouquets, like happy graduation bouquets or happy, but it was like not just flowers, it was like candy bouquets or, card bouquets or other things. But the whole business kind of evolved. So we had to reassess and be like, oh, well, does the name still work? Does the value still work? The foundational pieces. And in her case, the tactical execution adjusted, but the values stayed the same, because it was still about bringing joy and making memories for people. So that worked in her case, but that's not always the case.
Thanks, Rachel. That I'm going to do a little bit of a follow-up with that too, and kind of see where you fall with this. But I really liked where you had the number 4 and 5, your fundamental beliefs and principles for doing this, and that's customer trust and loyalty, because that's the long haul, right? And then attracting the right partners, and that's from suppliers to people you do business with. And I think that's so undervalued today. And I'm going to have you speak to this in a different thing. Several months ago, you sent over an email to Jim and I talking about how there's a different culture with, different generations. And I think it was, and I don't think it was millennials, but it was how they approach work differently. Their idea of coming to work and what they expect out of it and what they expect to offer an employer is different than what oftentimes we expect from them. So now I'm going to turn this value equation back around to you and say, how do we do that when we have two totally different generational ideologies colliding oftentimes? And not just from a hiring perspective, but even from a marketing perspective. So now this is like PhD level, but I know you're up for it. All right.
All right. First, remind me, this email that I sent you, was I venting? Was I complaining?
No, it was one of those random thoughts. I was actually looking for it. I've had it here for months, and then I was cleaning my desk, and you know what happened.
Okay.
But no, it was, you said it might be a good topic for us to discuss at some point on this platform. So I know, I just threw it out there. You don't.
No, I love it. I do, because this is true. This is something where, we're all living with this, right? Our workforce and our customers. I saw this video the other day of like Gen Alpha is starting to have buying power. I mean,
Wow.
They're 13. It's like they're looking for a whole different type of relationship with their brands. But that aside, I had a conversation with my staff this morning. We meet on Mondays, and normally we go through status, and it's quite tedious. But today, that is not the conversation this team wanted to have. They needed to vent, and they needed to talk about life. They needed to talk about money. They needed to talk adulting stuff. And these girls are all from, like mid-20s to mid-30s. And they needed to talk about adult stuff, health insurance, life insurance, home insurance, buying a house, apartment renting with a dog, all these things that school doesn't teach them. And their parents haven't taught them for some reason. I guess, maybe that's a generational thing too. So we spent like 2 hours today, doing life lessons. And it was like, okay, like that's what we're going to do today. And I challenged them to tell me later what's the most important thing to them in a job. I want them to tell me. And I feel like that's been a successful tactic. Instead of telling them why this job is great for them or what the benefits they're going to receive, I've asked each of them, we do annual reviews and 360s and stuff, but we have a big meeting every year, annually. And where I say, all right, what does success look like for you? Is it money? Is it time? Is it flexibility? Right? Like I give them some thought starters, but then they need to get back to me and tell me, because based on where they are in their life journey or what their goals are, the answers are totally different. And I never at that age and stage in my life had an owner of a company say, hey, what does success look like for you? Really? And the only answer that was acceptable when I was growing up in the corporate world was to be the first one in and the last one out. Thank you. Can I take the trash out and make the coffee on the way? Yes, I'm on it. But now I genuinely care about their happiness and their success. And I want to be, a tool in their tool chest to help them get there. And I really care. And I feel like that culture of caring comes through, or it doesn't in other organizations where you're just a number, and those are the companies that don't retain long-term employees or long-term clients. So does that answer your question?
Rachel, I just give you a compliment. Awesome. Sorry, Rod. Rachel, I just give you a compliment for having an environment where your team feels comfortable in going down that road of Q&A with you, and knowing that was okay, because how often does that happen? And I think when you created that type of environment, you get employees or partners or people that want to work with you for much longer, because they realize that you understand it's more than just what happens in these four walls, and what you're selling or buying or what have you. So great job there, and great example for everybody to learn by.
Thank you. So what else? I mean, I know some of us are solopreneurs, some are entrepreneurs, some are multipreneurs. We're all coming from different walks of life, so our experiences have all been very different. But some of these things are universal across all industries and stages. So,
if I can, Rachel, I'm gonna throw this out there. This was just a random thing I noticed today, but it's relevant to our conversation here. And I guess it is what sets you apart, what makes you different than what everyone else is doing, right? Because someone can always do what you're doing. Somebody else can replace you, your company, your product line, whatever. And I'm a backseat driver right now. I can't ride up front. So I'm in the back seat, and my wife is doing some errands. I'm with her doing some errands. And in our community, they legalized marijuana like a couple of years ago, recreational marijuana. So it's not able to be sold in the city limits, but outside the city limits, there are pot shops, like as many, like a Starbucks on every corner. There is a marijuana dispensary on every corner outside of the city limits. It's absolutely crazy. And some of the logos are really fun and catchy, right? But I was thinking about this. What makes, if I were to go out and want to go buy medical marijuana or medical grade recreational marijuana, whatever, why would I go from one shop to another? And it really gets into, are they putting their values out there with their signage? This is so important, because everyone can make a decision about what they want and how they want to get it, where they want to get it. And if we're not thinking about how it's going to be different, and no, I'm not thinking about, you guys are smiling. Rod's thinking he's going to get stoned. No, that's not it. It was just the thinking about it. There were probably 20 different marijuana shops. And it's like, why would I stop in one over another? And some of them are just, they're catchy, right? The titles were catchy. And it's like, I'll give you credit for that. Some of them had fancier looking signs. It didn't look like tumbleweeds in the front yard and all that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, I think it's important. Our values do end up identifying us in our business. And from a marketing perspective, I think those lines are easier for a customer to see sometimes than for a business owner to see. I guess maybe that's my point. Anyway,
hey, Rod.
Random thought.
Rod and Rachel, if I could answer that to a degree, Rod, mainly because I spent a lot of time in that business. Matter of fact, Rachel and I had a client almost 4 years ago where he wanted to create a brand in the cannabis space. By the way, at the time he was 92 years old, worth $700 million. And the exercise was to walk down his core values. What's the company culture? What is he known for? Trust and loyalty, all these things. And that would be a brand that would live in one of these mini shops. But what you'll find at these shops is each one of them specialize in their own culture and what they do. So for example, only because I've been to the brewery up there by the airport, there is a cannabis shop connected in their little outlet mall there. And I walked through there one night and I was talking to the lady behind the counter, and she knew every detail about every product. So I would consider her an educator, right? So their value proposition at that store was education. Now I know Zach, who owns the store down by me, because we had some things in common. The difference between Zach and this other shop is that Zach is a cultivator. So everything he has is something that he's grown, cultivated, and put his own stamp of approval on. And, even in the industry of cannabis, where, like you suggested, in our area right now, there's a store right next door to a store next to a store, which is insane. They're each known for something different. And by the way, even if what they're known for is absolutely nothing, it's just a shithole, that's what they're known for. Like, they might have the cheap prices, they don't care, but walk in the door, you get what you get. But especially in a competitive world, your values and your proposition are so important. It's one of the reasons why I found success at Kettle One Vodka, not only for myself, but the brand itself. We were in a sea of vodkas in 2001. There was over 1,000 vodkas. What made us stand apart? And in that company, it was family. When I started my tequila company, there was 1,200 registered tequilas in the United States. What made us stand apart? We were organic and we gave back, right? So values can really help you stand out in a sea of red when the market is flooded. If you could hone in on your values and stand out amongst everybody, you really can find success in that. So Jim, if you want to be in Montana, you better get up here. Sorry, Rachel, back to you.
Oh, no, it's all good. The cannabis space a few years ago, I mean, there was so much going on there. And right when it was getting legalized and everybody was throwing money at it, and yeah, all these really creative, brands were made, and they started making the shops over here in Orange County look kind of like Starbucks, right? And I had clients and I would, go see how they were laying it out or whatever. And at first I got really nervous walking in, like, oh God, is this okay? Is this, but I don't know. I stopped working in that space a couple of years ago, and I'm glad. It was like I don't know, just not that I wouldn't do it again. I don't know, just different. Doesn't really align with where our current values are, I guess. We've evolved a little bit. So that happens, Sunday brunch, people ask me, like, what kind of clients do you take on? Like, and most people will say, oh, like, you just do hospitality, or you just do restaurant, or you just do automotive, and I say, no, we just do people and companies that we care about. And I want to hook up people that work for me with brands that they're personally interested in, so that their job feels more like a hobby. So like, if I use this example all the time, like if you're a foodie, then you're going to get to work on the restaurant clients, right? Like that makes more sense. So, because you're already interested in food. So why wouldn't you? Or if you're an automotive enthusiast, then we'll hook you up with them. So, just trying to be thoughtful all the way through, and match up people's professional excellence with their personal passion is something that I try to talk about. So,
Hey, Rachel.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for questions, if anybody has questions, topics, you know what, Jim, you wanted to talk about what you had going on. I'd love to hear about that. And then I wanted to touch on something before we wrap up. So be thinking about your questions for Rachel or for Rod or myself. Jim, why don't you tell us what's going on with you? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I've always been, and I think I've said this before, I've always been a firm believer in the, you're kind of one question away or one phone call, from getting to where you need to be. And two things happened in the last couple of days. I happened to be walking out of the gym on Saturday and ran into a friend who kind of over the last year, he was out of a job. I was kind of helping him look, and then I was, and he was helping me look. We both landed opportunities kind of in the biz dev space. And as we started chatting, we started swapping ideas of sales and opportunity and things like that. We ended up getting into a conversation that he may now become a customer of the company I'm working for. And it just kind of opened a new door that, hey, here's an opportunity. I see the guy all the time, just happen at that time to stop and talk to him about work and business. And then a couple of weeks ago, through another mentoring group, somebody had posted, the power of the post, an opportunity to help people who are kind of stuck. And I thought, you know what, different perspective. Let me just reach out. I finally connected with her today. It was a fantastic call. She really kind of probed into the whole KushCube opportunity, gave me some, at least two really fantastic ideas on social media opportunities that I should look into, and said, you know what, I actually know somebody in the space in Chicago that I need to connect you with. And that connection has already happened from 1:30 this afternoon. But it just, I kind of look back and went, I didn't really need to reach out to either one. I'm not quite sure why I did, but I've always been that, hey, one more conversation. there's always opportunity. And both of these look like right now they're leading to something. So for all the opportunity, to post something on the platform, to reach out to somebody. Fred actually reached out to me last week on a personal level for some things, and we've started chatting, and looks like we're forming some new connections as well. So leverage the platforms wherever you are, whether it's our platform or another. The power of the question, one more conversation, one more phone call, one more email. It's a great
I
thing.
love that. I love it. And I love when we wear our own businesses on our sleeve and we're not afraid to talk about what we're doing conversationally with people that we run into, because you just don't know where that next lead is going to come from. And if you're proud of what you're doing and you're exuding your own excitement for what you're doing and, going for, the next level, whatever that looks like, that's when you're going to connect with people. That's when they're going to resonate with what you're doing and you're going to bring more to you. That's what's always like striving for more, and it's great that you have this group and the other ones that you're involved with, because that's what we're here for too, is to reach out to one another and kind of build each other up. I wanted to talk about something along these lines, and I'll end my story short if somebody's got a question in between, but I figured we had a few extra minutes here that I can bring some value. And what that is that based on our own historical backgrounds, sometimes we will have predetermined beliefs about ourselves. And I was coaching somebody in this group, and I love that they called me. And this person felt like, hey, I've got a job opportunity, but I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I qualify for the job. This job typically requires a bachelor's degree. And, they're doing all these fantastic things, and I don't see myself that way. And what was interesting is this person was approached by the owner of the company because they recognized something in them that said, hey, we like your organization. We like your enthusiasm. We like how you run your business. We would like to have you work for our company. Whereas this person was putting their own roadblocks in the way to be indecisive about this opportunity. And I want to remind everybody here that you are good enough to take advantage of those opportunities that are right in front of you. And if you have taken the time to determine what your own values are, what Rachel talked about tonight, not only from a business perspective, but from your own perspective, when somebody comes knocking on your door, you'll know if it's a fit based on your values, and then the confidence that you should have in your own abilities. And I didn't want to bring that person's name up, but Samantha's on the call. I'm going to bring her name up. Don't worry, Sam, I'm not going to call on you. But when Sam was looking at Flag Nor Fail back in January, like she had mentioned on the call last week, she stumbled across the brand position posted on their website. There was actually a few positions. And she says, oh, look at this company. We met these people. They've got some marketing positions open. I said, oh, what are they? So she rattles them off. She's like, yeah, but I'm not qualified for any of them. Look at all the things that are on there, right? And I said, wait a minute. I bet you could do all those things. And if you don't know how, I bet you would learn how, right? So she took a leap of faith based on what she knew about marketing. She took the job that she was offered right on the spot, which was incredible. And almost 9 months later, not only did she do the job, but she did the job so well, she took on a second job with them and did that so well that she created a new level of standard for the company. And when she left last week, one of their closing statements was, we've never had anybody in-house do this job, and you crushed it for us, right? And it's just a great example of believing in ourselves and what we can do based on what we've learned. Don't limit. Have faith and confidence in yourself, build out your values, and know that you can do it. So I just wanted that to be a reminder, because in the coming weeks, as we change seasons, we head into fall, Jim, opportunities coming your way, and all of us, opportunities that start to come our way as seasons change, as we evolve, as we attend events. You're going to run into people, and you should have the confidence to know that you have the ability to take on or walk through whatever doors in front of you. So those are going to be my closing words. And by the way, I'm looking forward to seeing interview in person Thursday night. If you know of somebody that might have interest in coming, I do want to thank some members in this group for sponsoring other people to come because they don't live in the state and they couldn't be there. So first of all, thank you for sponsoring the opportunity for other people to come. If you haven't got a ticket and you want to come, we'd love to see you. I'm heading down on Wednesday. Rachel, I'll say it publicly. You have done a fantastic job. By far the most talented marketing person I've ever met in all the materials. So thank you publicly for all the work that you've done, the countless hours. And Rod, you put together one of the best videos for people to watch as our intro video that I've heard you put on so far. And we've had a lot of interviews already. So thank you both for your efforts. I'm really, really looking forward to Thursday night.
Yep.
Thank
I
you.
also want to thank you, Jim, for that. It's a labor of love, really. Everything that we do for Y.E.S, it's really coming from coming from the heart. I know that we're doing the right thing and we're gonna help a lot of people. So it's wonderful. And then I wanted to tell you guys who can't be there. If you're not going to be there, it's Orange County, right? It's not just around the corner for all of us, but we are going to have a video and photography team on site. We are going to be recording it. There will be a full length recording that we'll share probably privately with our members, benefit of membership. So, if you can't be there, you'll still get to, be a part of it, and we'll share that with you.
Awesome. Rod, any closing thoughts?
Just one, besides the fact that I'm heartbroken that I'm not going to be in Orange County next week, but I'm so excited that you guys are going to be there and anyone who can show up. And I'm excited about the video. And if you've got any snippets, next week I'll be hosting the call. But if you've got any snippets and you guys want to share them during our call next Monday, I will leave lots of white space in my calendar. I'll make a real short thing so we can do highlights, because I think that would be valuable to everybody. One thing that I learned last week while I was in a seminar, and it went something like this. I've got it written down in a notebook, but it's a great product and good values, and any brand will do. But wrong values, no brand can save you. And that kind of wraps up what we're talking about tonight. If you get it wrong on the important stuff, you're going to sink. And so we need to pay attention to the important stuff. So Rachel, thank you tonight. An excellent job bringing it to the table and, highlighting the importance of all of that. So I appreciate that. Jim, again, thank you very much for all that you do and pulling this stuff together. It's nice to see everybody on these calls. Absolutely hope you're getting as much out of it as I do, and look forward to bringing it next week.
Hey, last point as I close, and we will end this, is Rod just brought up that he was in a seminar last week. And what's interesting is that Rachel and I were both in an Alex Hormozi seminar on Sunday, even though I was traveling. And, I don't know what she was doing. I'm sure she was busy with family. Jim, you gave me a thumbs up. Did you listen to Alex's seminar?
I did. I purchased the book too.
Well, there you go. Right. I think
on top of all the other free stuff he gave out.
Tons of free stuff. I think the point is that we can always learn and evolve. And what's interesting about Alex's seminar is that the value is probably in the first 10 minutes. And then the rest of it, he was kind of selling us on all the things that he put into his book, which was great. But in those first 10 minutes, I garnered some new knowledge. So I would encourage everybody, if not now, sometime in the next week, to seek out new knowledge somewhere, whether that's in a book, a podcast, or a seminar. Continue growing. We'll try to bring more back to this group next Monday. Rod, thanks for the white space. We're going to use it. And if anybody needs us in between, you know how to get us. And we'll also see on the back end on the platform. Thank you, everybody.